Hello, today I'm reviewing Fractal Design's brand new 12.6 litre small form factor case Ridge, which is available from today in both black and white. But is it worth almost $130 off your hard-earned money? Let's find out. To remove the side panels, you need to loosen the cap to thumb screws at the back, and once they have been loosened, the panel can be pulled outwards from the back and then pulled backwards to remove. And the other panel is removed in exactly the same way. If you want to mount the case horizontally, there's 2 feet in the case accessory box that you need to mount to one of the side panels. Once these have been mounted, if you simply return the panels to the case, you can see what the case looks like in the horizontal position. In the horizontal orientation, you've got 2 different positions you can have the feet in. So if we remove the feet round to their alternative position, you can see now the panel at the front has changed. If you prefer to go the case in the vertical orientation, the first thing to do is remove the bottom panel. It's held on with 4 screws at both sides, and once these have been removed, the bottom panel can simply be pulled away. You're then simply going to secure the feet to the bottom panel with 4 screws before returning it to the case. Taking a look at our front I/O, we've got a power button, we've got a combined headphone and microphone jack, we've got 2 USB Type A ports and a single Type C port. When the case is powered on, we've got a white indicator LED shining through the fabric panel at the front. This panel is magnetically attached and can simply be pulled away from the front. The top of the case is removed in exactly the same way as the bottom. We've got 2 screws on each side, and once these are removed, the top can simply be lifted away. Orientating you in the case, so your motherboard is going to go down here at the bottom. It's going to be inverted, so the PCIe slot is going to be at the top, and the case is compatible with both mini-itx and mini-itx motherboards. If you do go with a mini-itx motherboard, because of its extra length, it's going to be extending up into the upper compartment, which means you're going to have to remove the pre-installed fan on this side to allow it to fit. The power supply is going to go next to the motherboard in a removable bracket. I'll show you how to remove that in a minute, and the case is compatible with both SFX and SFXL power supplies up to a maximum length of 130mm. Moving up to the top compartment, and here we can install either a graphics card, an AIO, or a combination of the 2. If you're planning on going with integrated graphics and just want to maximize your CPU cooling, you can fit up to 280 or 240mm AIO without a graphics card installed. If you're happy to go with a small graphics card up to 175mm in length, you are able to fit both a graphics card at the top and a 120mm AIO. If you go with a larger graphics card, you're going to have to use an air cooler, and the maximum height for CPU coolers being supported in the case is 70mm. So without an AIO, you can actually fit a pretty large graphics card in this case, up to a maximum length of 335mm. However, if you do install an SSD at the front, this will be reduced to 325mm. In terms of height of the graphics card, it's up to 137mm, although if you do install fans at the top of the case, this will reduce down to 125mm. In terms of graphics card thickness, it's up to 82mm, although if you do want to keep the pre-installed 140mm fans in the case, your maximum thickness is going to be reduced down to 57mm. In terms of fan support, at the side you can fit up to 2 120 or 2 140mm fans, and the case comes with 2 Aspect 14 PWM fans pre-installed. And at the top of the case you can fit up to 3 80mm fans. To be able to install the graphics card at the top, we're going to need to remove the top of the case. It's held on with 2 screws at each corner, and we're also going to need to remove the top fan screws. Once these have been removed, the top of the case can simply be lifted off. The case's graphics card bracket is held on with 2 screws at one side and 1 at the other, and once these have been removed, the bracket can simply be lifted away. Taking a look at this bracket, you'll notice that it actually contains a Gen 4 riser card. So one end is going to plug into your motherboard. Remember, the motherboard's installed upside down, so the PCIe slot is going to be up at the top of the motherboard. And then the other end, you're going to plug in this little adapter that you get in the case accessory box, and then your graphics card is going to go into it. At the bottom of the case, the bracket for our power supply is held on with 2 screws at the front and 2 at the back, and once these have been removed, the bracket can be lifted away. There is some space behind the bracket for managing some cables, although it is limited at only 13.8mm. So the case is compatible with up to 4 2.5-inch drives. Two of these are mounted at the front and screwed in from the front, while the other two are secured on the quick mount at the rear of the case. At the rear of the case, we've also got a cutout for a security lock. So what I want to do now is give you a look at the build I put together in the case. Next thing to take a look at is the temperatures. So our 7900X reached its thermal limit of 95 degrees fairly quickly during the AIDA64 stability test, with its clock speeds been limited to around about 4.9 to 5 GHz. The NVIDIA RTX 3060 Ti performed fairly well, reaching a maximum of only 71 degrees during the AIDA64 stability test. So GPU temperatures were fairly good. It probably wasn't the smartest idea to put a 7900X in this case, being only cooled with a small low profile cooler, but I was keen just to see what I could do with it. And in the build guide I did try out a few different configurations where I was able to bring the temperature down, losing only about 2.5% of the performance. So you want to take a look at that. It's in the build guide video, and I'll put a link to that in the description. So now we come on to my experience of having built in the case, and in general everything was really good. Fractal's instruction manual telling you the steps to build in and how to manage the cables was really good and really helpful, and following along to that I didn't really get into any problems. They even mentioned plugging in the 8-pin EPS cable before you put the motherboard into the case, and plugging in your 24-pin cable before installing your power supply. So they would be some areas, if you didn't follow their advice, it might be a little bit tricky. And in terms of the graphics card, I didn't really push it in this case with the NVIDIA 3060 Ti. But prior to doing the build, I did try fitting my Strix RTX 3080. It did fit. It was a little bit awkward to get it in, and I did obviously have to remove the fans at the back. But I just decided for this particular build I wanted to go with a more reasonable GPU. So now I want to come on to the things I liked about the case, and as you'd expect coming from Fractal, the build quality was exceptional throughout. I think one of the things I really like about this case is it's just different to anything that I've built in before. And as somebody who builds an awful lot of PCs every year, having something just completely different is really refreshing and really nice. And the build layout just worked very well. I could see this in a minimalistic setup sitting beside a monitor and not very much else on the desk, or as a media center sitting beside your TV, and I think it would look really exceptional. And I think so people's eyes would definitely be drawn to it. It looks nice and attractive. One of the other things I liked was the fabric panel on the front, and I particularly like the way the power LED light shines through the panel. I think that was a really nice subtle touch, but it does look really good. In terms of price, this is also pretty good, just under $130 US. But when you consider you've got a Gen 4 riser card in the case and a case of this build quality, I think you're actually getting pretty good value for money, because particularly when you go with small form factor cases, the price seems to go up. Another thing I like about the case is the flexibility. You can have it in the vertical orientation like I've got it here, and as I've also shown you, you can have it horizontally in two different orientations as well. But this brings me on to one of the things that I don't like about the case, and in fact I think it's the only thing I don't like about the case, and it comes from the flexibility that you have. Because you've got the ability to rotate the case around in all these different orientations, the panels have enlarged holes in them for mounting feet. And in this vertical orientation, I really don't like the side panel with the additional holes in it. And when you have the case in the horizontal orientation, then you can see the holes in the bottom of the case where you could have it in a different orientation. So I can see why Fractal have done this. They're giving you the increased flexibility, but still keeping the cost down. The only other ways to have done this would to have included optional panels that you could switch out depending on the orientation that you've gone for, but that's obviously going to come at extra cost, or have two different versions of the case. But again, that's likely to result in extra cost, and as well you're going to lose the flexibility, because if you get the vertical version of the case, you can't change it. later on. So although I don't like the side panel as well, I think Fractal have probably gone with the best overall option. But maybe offering a replacement side panel as an optional extra might be a nice touch. So we've now reached the point in the video where I need to tell you, should you go out and get this case? Well, I think the answer to that really depends on what you're planning on doing with it. If you're going for an absolutely high-end system in it with a really powerful CPU and a really powerful GPU, it's probably not the case for you due to its limitations in cooling. If you want to maximize your CPU cooling with a 280mm AIO, you can't have a GPU in it. And really that really powerful CPU with no GPU isn't a great pairing option. If you want to then put a powerful GPU, then you're limited on your CPU cooling. So for somebody wanting to build a high-end system, I don't think this is the way to go. If you're planning more of a low to mid-range system, then I think the cooling and the layouts you've got in it are going to work fairly well. And if you want that minimalistic system to sit beside your TV or your computer with not very much on the desk and look good, then this is definitely a fairly reasonable option to consider, particularly when you're getting the Gen 4 riser cable at less than $130 US. I think you're getting pretty good value for money. So remember as well, I have done a full step-by-step build guide in this case, so if you are thinking of doing a build in it, you're going to want to check that out, and I'll put a link to that video in the description. So if you have enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching.